Hello and welcome. This is Notibot Yenji. Tonight, we bring you a recap of the latest developments in the Middle East and beyond. The Iran war rages on, with tensions escalating as the US pushes for a deal. But is the Strait of Hormuz still safe? Meanwhile, Iran's IRGC warns of further conflict, and the G-7 tries to balance its response to the Russia-Ukraine and Iran wars. We'll take a closer look at these and more in our news recap, starting with the Iran war and its ongoing impact on global security. As the world grapples with the ongoing crisis in Ukraine, let's take a closer look at the alarming costs of the US-Iran conflict. The US has been criticized for its increasing reliance on military spending, with some experts warning that this approach is based on a flawed understanding of global politics. The remarks come as tensions with Iran remain high, with the US and Iran engaged in a game of brinkmanship over nuclear capabilities. George Kennan, a renowned historian and former US diplomat, has warned that such an approach to foreign policy is doomed to fail. "We have to be willing to speak the truth to power, even if it is unpopular," he said. The fear of being outcast is a powerful force, but it should not be allowed to dictate our actions. Tuchman's warning is particularly relevant in the context of the US's current military spending spree, which has reached unprecedented levels. The US has committed to spending over $2 trillion on defense by 2030, a figure that dwarfs the combined military spending of the world's next 7 largest nuclear-armed states. The rationale behind this approach is that a strong military deterrence will prevent other nations from challenging US interests. However, this logic is based on a flawed assumption that military power is the most effective tool for achieving foreign policy goals. Many experts argue that this approach is not only expensive but also undermines diplomatic efforts, creating a culture of fear and mistrust among nations. As the situation with Iran continues to deteriorate, it is essential that US leaders take a more nuanced approach to foreign policy, one that prioritizes diplomacy and cooperation over military muscle. As tensions escalate in the Middle East, the world holds its breath as a stalemate persists in the Strait of Hormuz, blocking vital shipping routes. We're coming to you live from the Middle East, where tensions are escalating between Iran and the United States. The situation has taken a dramatic turn, with the Israeli military issuing a warning to residents in several areas around Iran's unfinished Iraq heavy water nuclear reactor. President Trump and top White House officials presented a 15-point framework for a peace deal to Iran, with the U.S. Special Envoy, Steve Witkoff, saying the administration had chosen Pakistan as an intermediary to deliver the proposal. However, it appears that Iran's response to the U.S. offer has not yet been received, with sources close to the matter indicating that Iran's counterproposal is expected to arrive on Friday. Meanwhile, the Israeli military has warned residents in areas designated on maps shared by the military to evacuate immediately due to planned operations in the coming hours. The area highlighted in Iraq includes the heavy water reactor, which was struck in June 2025 during joint US-Iranian strikes. The situation is complex, but it's clear that the stakes are high. The US and Iran are engaged in a delicate dance, with the fate of the peace talks hanging in the balance. If a deal is struck, it could have significant implications for regional stability and global security. On the other hand, if talks fail, the consequences could be catastrophic, with the risk of further conflict and instability in the region. For now, the world is holding its breath, waiting to see how Iran responds to the US offer. Will a deal be reached, or will tensions escalate further? Only time will tell. We'll continue to bring you updates as the situation develops. As tensions between Iran and the West continue to simmer, a recent warning from the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has sparked fresh concerns about a possible escalation. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, has issued a warning stating that the country will take decisive action against any threat to its national security. This comes amid ongoing talks with world powers over Iran's nuclear program and the conflict in Yemen. The IRGC's warning has fueled fears of an escalation in tensions between Iran and the West. The warning was made by the IRGC's Aerospace Force Commander, Amir Hajizadeh, in a speech on Tuesday. He said that the country has developed a range of new missiles capable of carrying nuclear warheads. This has raised concerns among Western powers, including the US and UK, which have been conducting talks with Iran over its nuclear program. The talks, which are being held in Vienna, aim to find a way to revive the 2015 nuclear deal between Iran and world powers. The deal, which was negotiated by the US, UK, France, and other countries, imposed strict limits on Iran's nuclear program in exchange for sanctions relief. However, US President Joe Biden withdrew the US from the deal in 2020, citing concerns over Iran's ballistic missile program and its support for terrorism. Iran has since responded by increasing its uranium enrichment and developing new missiles. The IRGC's warning has heightened tensions, with the US and UK urging calm. The UK's Foreign Secretary, Liz Truss, said that the warning was a concerning development and that the UK would continue to work with its allies to find a way to resolve the crisis peacefully. As world leaders gather for the G7 summit, a delicate balancing act is expected to take place amidst ongoing conflicts in Ukraine and Iran. The Group of Seven, comprising Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the United Kingdom, and the United States, has convened in the French countryside for a two-day summit aimed at addressing the ongoing conflicts in Russia, Ukraine, and Iran. The gathering of G7 foreign ministers marks a significant effort to find common ground and balance competing priorities. However, analysts expect the summit to be marked by tension, particularly when U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio arrives on Friday to deliver a message on the United States agenda. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has been a major focus of international attention, with Western countries imposing severe economic sanctions on Russia. The conflict has also sparked a global refugee crisis, with millions displaced and seeking asylum in neighboring countries. The G7 has pledged to provide significant financial and humanitarian aid to Ukraine, but the summit's tone is likely to be complicated by the differing views of some member countries. Meanwhile, the Iran nuclear deal has also been a contentious issue, with the United States and European Union allies pushing for a return to the 2015 agreement. However, Iran has rejected the proposal, citing concerns about its sovereignty and territorial integrity. The G7's efforts to address both conflicts will be closely watched, as the international community seeks to find a peaceful resolution to these long-standing disputes. With the stakes high, the G7's ability to work together will be tested, and the outcome of the summit will have significant implications for global politics and international relations. Breaking developments are emerging from the Middle East as tensions escalate between Israel and Iran, with U.S. President Donald Trump making a surprise claim. We're coming to you live with breaking news from the Middle East. The situation in the Strait of Hormuz has escalated, with Israel and Iran exchanging fire in a tense standoff. The conflict began on Friday when an Iranian drone was intercepted by the Israeli military, sparking a retaliatory strike by the Iranian Air Force. The exchange of fire has raised concerns about the security of the shipping lane, which is a critical waterway for global oil supplies. The United Nations and the international community have been urging restraint, but the situation remains volatile. President Donald Trump extended the deadline for Iran to fully reopen the Strait of Hormuz, which is due to expire on Monday. Diplomats from the Group of Seven nations, including the US, China, France, Germany, Japan, the UK, and Canada, were meeting in New York to discuss the security of the shipping lane. The US has been seeking to persuade Iran to reopen the strait, which has been closed since Friday following the drone incident. The Iranian government has said it will reopen the strait once it is satisfied that the US has fulfilled its commitments to reduce its military presence in the region. The situation in the Strait of Hormuz matters because it has significant implications for the global economy. The strait is a critical choke point for oil supplies, and any disruption to the flow of oil could have severe consequences for the global economy. We'll continue to bring you updates on this developing story as more information becomes available. A significant development in the complex geopolitics of the Middle East and Eastern Europe as Ukraine and Saudi Arabia unveil a defense cooperation agreement. Ukraine has announced a mutually beneficial defense deal with Saudi Arabia amid the ongoing war in Iran. The agreement was signed by President Volodymyr Zelensky during a visit to the kingdom, ahead of a meeting with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Zelensky stated that the arrangement would lay the groundwork for future contracts, technological cooperation, and investment between the two countries. Saudi Arabia has not publicly confirmed the defense pact, but it comes as the kingdom has been intercepting hundreds of drones and missiles from Iran since the US and Israel strikes on Tehran on February 28. At least 6 missiles were intercepted on Friday, according to the Saudi Defense Ministry. This escalation has led to concerns about civilian casualties, with at least 25 people killed in Gulf countries in recent days, including 2 in the United Arab Emirates on Thursday. Ukraine's expertise in countering drones has been highlighted as a key factor in this development. The country has become a major producer of cheap but efficient interceptor drones, and its Air Force has reported a growing success rate in shooting down enemy drones. With Iran's drone attacks posing a threat to Gulf nations, Ukraine's experience and technology could be valuable in addressing this issue. The partnership between Ukraine and Saudi Arabia could help to mitigate this risk and provide a much-needed security boost to the region. That's all for tonight's news recap. Thank you for joining us. We'll continue to bring you updates on the Strait of Hormuz, Iran war, and ongoing conflicts in the region. Don't miss out on our in-depth analysis and expert insights. Subscribe to our channel for the latest news and updates. Stay informed and stay ahead of the global news landscape. We'll be back tomorrow with more breaking news.